Hello and welcome back to Aston Martin and Season 3 of F1 Manager 22 here in 23 for Race 2 of 22. I've just realised I've not clicked through to the race, nothing's going to happen in between, so I'm going to have a quick nosy at a couple of the time considerations because I forgot to do that last time. I mean, despite Jeddah being Jeddah, we had one race with 3 virtual safety cars, one race with 2 normal safety cars, and apparently 2 races with nothing at all. High speed the key here though, and we're definitely good at that. Sergio Perez last year has the lap record for it. And there is a 2-stop strategy on the cards, but it's basically medium hard or hard medium. And I apologise for starting with spoilers if you haven't watched the last race. Apologies for the state of the last race. Nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. As I mentioned in the Abu Dhabi preview little clip I did, it was a sound setting that changed in one of my effectively modulation software things, which reverted the input to an internal microphone somewhere rather than using this one, and it basically just sounded like I was recording from the inside of a tin can. So yeah, apologies for that. I will be triple checking every single sound setting from here on in just to make sure that never happens again. I don't know what's going on technology wise recently between OBS crashes and sound resetting itself. Not been a fun time for me here on this particular fun, but what is fun is my enjoyment of this particular game at this particular moment. I've had frustrations with it, but right now it's been vastly enjoyable. We've not had a dud race really since Netherlands last year. So I'm massively paranoid we're about to have one. But it is Saudi, there should be things that happen. And yeah, that's it for preview. Obviously nothing else to mention. I will see you for qualifying. Alright, don't get too excited. They were low fuel runs. You know, we used low fuel runs in the previous eras of this car to, you know, do a respectable time. Now it's going to be slightly inflationary. But we are up there. We are up there, of course. Pierre actually had a full-on crash, it's worth saying, in practice 2. He just drove into the wall. Just drove into the wall, really. It wasn't a spin, wasn't an understeer. He just drove straight into the wall. Kind of like having Magnussen, really, but front end in and completely wrecked the car. But he did actually only wreck the gearbox completely, and that's it. So the engine and the ERS are still functional enough to be using in practice sessions going forward. It did damage them, but not 0%ed them, as you can see here. I'm going to have to install the second of both of them, but it was only the gearbox that 0%ed. And actually, I was going to put on the second version of all of these anyway on Mick's car. So I was going to put the second version on for both cars anyway. I've done it for Mick and using the first version as the practice going forward. I'll get him out, hopefully get a clean track. There's obviously a couple of problem spots where it's difficult to overtake, but hopefully just Stroll and he's about half a lap ahead anyway, so it should be all right. 1:28.1 from Verstappen, or 2 really, I suppose. Okay, everyone's completed a lap here. Gasly's fine. That cut-off point with Norris is 100% legitimate as well. I think that's just their pace here. Daniel Ricciardo crashed twice, so I think he has actually probably taken car damage at some point and is doing that thing where the car's just slower for the rest of the weekend. But considering doing his 8th, I think there's more to Albon. There's certainly more to Sainz, who's behind Mick. I dare say there's probably more to Hamilton and Ocon too. I think there's genuinely 4 worse cars, but I'm going to send Mick just for safety. I'd argue that Mick and Bottas is effectively the cut-off point. I don't know who's yet to come out, but I'm going to click Mick now. I think he'll be all right. Oh, he's ahead of a Ferrari, but we're not that much slower than them now, so less of an issue. Gasly's fine. I'd argue the top 5 are fine at this point, 100%. We'll just watch Mick's off-board, just in case there's any incidents or what have you, but it should be relatively undramatic. It is slightly irritating, the fact that drivers don't stay in when they don't need to. It is slightly irritating the drivers come out when they don't need to again. More so just because it gives you an advantage than anything else. It's extra traffic, which is irritating, but it also kind of offers you an advantage that I'm going to take. I'm not going to not do it just because, but you save tyres. If you're in the Verstappen, Leclerc, you know, top 3, 4, 5 ballpark, then don't run again, save tyres. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's only a couple of laps worth of advantage, I suppose, long term, but Sargent improves to 16th. That's not great. There goes Albon into where you'd expect, directly behind Doohan, actually. Ocon improves ahead of Mick. I did say I was concerned by him. 3 people are now across the line, guaranteed to be behind. 4 with Ricciardo, I suspect. Yep, there we go. Mick does improve his time, but not his position. Everyone who's kind of able to displace Mick is still kind of behind him. There goes Hamilton. Now Bottas shifts up, but he was ahead anyway. Ooh, the Haas improves to 11th. Mick was fine in 10th regardless. There's a bit of shift around there, I think. I think Magnussen got himself up to 17th and Stroll up to 16th. And obviously Vettel out of the bottom 5 into 11th. Zhou Guanyu, I suspect, moved 2 there as well. But both Alpines nip ahead of Mick as well in that final run. So 6th and 10th. But Gasly's now got spare tyres. A lot of people going early here, which is probably concerning because it means definitely going to catch someone. Mick found Perez in a good spot. Gasly, I don't know, did. Okay, looking at the differential, seems to be all right. Verstappen only second. Interesting. All right, so we're going to need both drivers here as I switch back to 1 times literally as someone leaves the pit. Good timing on that front. It's one of the Alpha Tauris, which, yeah, that's fine. It's gone very early, actually, has that car. It's a 1.5 minute lap. There was no need for that. You can probably wait till 2.5 minutes and go. Actually, is he going to be a problem? Whoever that is. It's doing. He's gone so early, he could end up being a problem. I'm going to try and get Gasly out as soon as possible. I kind of actually wanted him to get out next, but my realization happened just as those Red Bulls left, I think. And now we have to wait for literally everybody. And for some reason, Mick has to wait even longer, even though I clicked him as soon as Gasly left. But he's come out behind whichever the Mercs that is. We'll be with Mick on this flying lap because obviously he's the one more at peril of being knocked out here. Only 9th as things stands. Although he was 10th obviously in Q1, so we know he's on the borderline. Kind of fascinating to watch doing here because there's still people coming through the first sector as he's about to start his lap. And Mick is one of the people who is towards the back of that queue if they were to be caught by the end of the lap. Even though I clicked Gasly to leave literally as the first of those 2 Red Bulls went out, we've ended up about 10 cars down the train. I think everything's going to be okay. Mick's round the final corner. Jack Doohan is just starting sector 3 at this point, so get away with it. But not a massive amount of difference. It's probably in about 10-15 seconds. I think we all got around a little bit faster than I was anticipating, actually. I was expecting it to be a lot closer to 20 seconds on the clock by the time Mick got across that line, which is about when Doohan is about to cross that line, as he does so now, and puts himself 8th in the process, ahead of Mick. Mick needs to find something here on these fresh tyres. And it's probably worthwhile being on the sector pages. Both drivers find something. No one else is going to cross the line before the checkered flag, which is helpful at least, because we don't have to wait too long for Doohan to get around after Vettel. That will have to be at the back. But yeah, the Red Bulls are necessarily obviously out again here. Crossing the line now. Can either of them take pole? Perez goes ahead. Verstappen goes on the Q2 pole. There goes Norris. Not ahead of Mick, interestingly. Hamilton improves to 8th, sorry. Leclerc back into 2nd for this session. Mick's been put into 11th by Albon. Gasly moves up to 5th. He was probably fine anyway, but here comes Mick. Up into 9th. There's still Zhou and Vettel, but I think we'll be okay now. Jack Doohan into 10th, though. Ocon out. Is a bit of a surprise, actually. Good work from Jack Doohan, especially considering he went so much earlier than everyone else. Both drivers into Q3, sorry. So it does mean Mick will have 0 fresh soft tyres for this race. Oh, actually, this has worked out. I was sad for a moment we were going to get stuck behind Doohan on the track just because we know he's the slowest of the 10. But a Merc prevented us from actually setting off immediately there instead. So we're behind a Merc rather than Doohan, which is better for us because we'll get the lovely tow from Valtteri Bottas instead. And we don't hit traffic either. Even better. Doohan faster than Mick though still, which is a shame. Perez leading Verstappen in this qualifying session is he's gone again, bless him. Not quite as early, I don't think, this time around, but people might set off a little later just because there's less vehicles. But yeah, Perez leading Verstappen in this session is an interesting development, but it is Noah's Arking at this point. 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, 2 Mercs. Actually, we don't really need to wait all that much anymore because the Ferraris aren't that much faster than us, so we don't need to dilly-dally anymore. I mean, Mick's going to be last, so that's fine. Out of the 2, I'd prefer Mick to be the one not being hounded, but Gasly's obviously got the pace to contend with Ferraris and racers, so I'll imagine he'll keep a decent gap to them. I can't remember if I actually stayed on board with Mick in the end in Q2, but here comes Gasly's flying lap in Q3. 2 drivers to pay attention to still, which is a novelty for us. That's not happened all that often, but we'll obviously give our main focus over to Pierre. We'll put expectations on Mick to get 9th here, and then the improvement on 7th will be nice for Gasly. Not expecting an improvement from Gasly. I mean, I'm expecting an improvement in his time, but I'm not expecting an improvement in position because everyone probably went off and used tyres there. I'm just going to flip over to Mick because there's a fascinating gap ahead of Hamilton here. Bottas is right on the gearbox of his teammate for kind of no apparent reason. The Ferrari's not too far off Pierre, but he's enough that it's not a concern for me that, you know, he's forcing Pierre to unnaturally defend on his flying lap for whatever reason. But Mick did do a faster first sector, which is a bit of a shame, considering he's on fresh tyres now. I don't think Perez actually improved his time, weirdly. Gasly's across the line in 5th temporarily. Leclerc's across the line in 3rd. Sainz stays 4th. Bottas retakes Gasly. Gasly has pipped Russell at least. Mick goes into 8th. And Doohan's already crossed the line, and Verstappen just, I think, took it before the checkered flag. So Perez on pole. Loves the street circuit. Mick found something in that last one. Blimey. I mean, Jack Doohan found something actually, but wasn't enough. But yeah, 128.9, 128.9, and then suddenly 128.7 something. Pierre went actually faster in Q2. Pierre's Q2 time would have been good enough for 5th, but Max couldn't find it in Q3. Whatever reason, couldn't find it. Neither could Leclerc. He was 3/10 off his best time. So Pierre doesn't have a soft available to him. What's the one stop? No, the one stop is viable. The two stop is apparently effectively identical. In overall race time, the two stop is apparently identical. And bear in mind, this board line here is 30%, not 40%, which is kind of where the tyres start to go off. Oh, I think we do two stop with Pierre. I think we do two stop, and actually we go 2 laps earlier onto the medium than it says on here, because we'll burn through these ones a little bit faster, because we'll burn at the beginning and we'll burn at the end. And I think we do one stop with Mick and push that first stint maybe a lap forward, because he's better on his tyres overall. Should have done those negotiations from over here, but it's time for the race.
And it's lights out, and away we go.
An interesting array of tyre choices, as I have actually forgotten to tell them to attack on the first lap, which is a mistake I've not done in a little while. So they haven't had that benefit off the line, sadly. But Pierre has got position on this inside, regardless, into the first corner. Is he the only soft runner up there? He is. All the other soft runners are towards the back. Well, bottom half at least. There's 2 hard runners in that top half as well, Verstappen and Leclerc. But Gasly's taken Bottas. Mick having a little bit of a nosy at Hamilton. We won't push his tyres too much, actually. In fact, we'll take him off that straight away. We can afford it with Gasly because he's obviously got a little bit of wiggle room, but Mick's pushing a one stop as things stands. But we can push the ERS, we can push the fuel, of course, all the other things, and let him just have his reasonably good tyre management come into play here. Pierre all over the back of the Ferrari of Leclerc, who's on hards, let's not forget here. I was about to say I'll take his tyres off as soon as he overtakes him, but he was looking immediately there, because he will overtake him, I think, into this corner. He'll have the trip and the graction coming up. Graction? Did I say trip and graction? The grip and traction. I'll come back in. Take off the deploy as well while we're at it. And in taking Leclerc, he's already looking at sights. Probably should have looked at that replay, actually, thinking about it, but never mind. I think Norris had a poor start. I'm trying to remember the exact order of the starting lot. It might be just Ocon's got Albon and that's it. I'm trying to remember if Norris was 12th. I'm trying to remember if Norris was 13th already or if Norris was 11th originally. I think it's only Ocon over Albon, and that's the only change down there. I think there's no other changes in the lineup, full stop, other than Gasly and Ocon moving up the order to the detriment of respective people. So Mick, you just hold on to Russell for this race. You're on the same strategy, so finish 8th. I'll be happy with you, quite frankly. Whereas Pierre, as we speed things up a little bit, just to see, just kind of see what Pierre's doing more than anything. I want to see how much of a look he's having on these people. The DRS is on now, but obviously everyone's got DRS, which I think will help. None of it's going to help or hinder, actually, because it's Perez on mediums versus Verstappen on hard. So the pace differential is going to be negated by the DRS, and Verstappen's got him. And Pierre's in this train. I'm always tempted to tell him to not push fuel now. Same with Mick, actually. He's only 3/10 off Russell. We almost need the Red Bulls to sort of bugger off up the road, because Perez is being swamped now. These front 5 are too competitive. They have detached a little bit from Russell, who I think has lost DRS, actually. So he could try and take Russell soon, and indeed does. So now he's ahead. We'll just tell him to deploy and push the fuel again. And now Sainz is leading, and Verstappen's down to 3rd. Yeah, that front 3 are swapping places to a degree that isn't really helping Pierre. And there's been an incident. Don't need to deploy. It's the Williams at the back. It's Tsunoda again. Poor Tsunoda. He's definitely got an attribute in his roster there that's just kind of will just crash at will, really. I very rarely put tyres on conserve, but the DRS effect here could help sort of preserve Gasly for an extra lap, really. All right, and now Mick's right on the gearbox of Bottas. We'll start pushing his fuel again as well. So we brought Hamilton into this 9-car train. So it's Perez, Sainz, Verstappen on this lap from Gasly, Leclerc, and then Bottas, the current Mercedes reserve driver, the current actual and in-game Mercedes driver of Russell, and the no longer Mercedes driver of Hamilton in-game, and then Jack Doohan. It would have been slightly more fun if it had been his now teammate Ocon behind him, but it's a Mercedes-associated love fest in 6, 7, 8, 9 now. Oh, Gasly's actually fallen out of DRS range. I do need to actually keep pushing him a little bit. Actually, no, he hasn't. He's still got DRS, so I don't know what's going on there. And I think he's got it by the line. Just make sure there's no issues there, thank you. I mean, the pit window's in 1 lap. We can leave Pierre out there a little bit longer. Get the benefit of this for that little bit longer. Might have to push his fuel as a result, but now obviously I'm not going to just bring you the play-by-play of every single lap here, but I might not have the luxury of actually flipping over to a faster race speed, because this is all about managing that 1 second gap. and making sure Pierre never falls out of it. So Bottas has come a little bit detached, and Mick is a little bit struggling to stay into it. So I'm just going to, chivvy him along a little bit. But bear in mind, none of these drivers right now in this train are going to pit before Pierre. So I might as well try and keep the benefit of this DRS as long as possible. I'm always tempted to go medium in the middle now. What's the overall tyre wear? Mick's tyre wear is for some reason lower than everyone else's, even though he's got really good tyre smoothness attribute. It's better than Pierre's anyway. I mean, it's an excellent race for the fans. There's so much overtaking at the front here. I must say, Verstappen's in a very good spot because even on hards, he's not lost Perez or Sainz. Leclerc could be in a good spot to have a go. Is that going to affect you? Yes, because you're going to stop. I mean, you were fine there, Mick. You were fine there just to drive forwards. Dear Frontier, if a driver is driving forwards and there's a wall on his right-hand side, just keep him driving forwards. Critical damage to the You hit that wall at 2 miles an hour. You just turned into it. You'd already stopped, effectively, in the runoff area. Well, that was nonsensical. Obviously, I'm going to pit Gasly under this because he was close to his pit stop window anyway, and he obviously had wiggle room on laps either way. Anyone that was on softs should pit right now. Unfortunately, it is going to ruin the race a little bit for Gasly in particular. He might, depending on how quickly you can get in and out, he might come out not too far down this order. Certainly Vettel on the 22nd borderline. Maybe Joe and Norris, he could come out ahead of Albon. But he was going to pit in a couple laps anyway, so he obviously has to pit now instead. And I suspect Ocon will behind. He has. I think there was another crew out right there. Norris. Interesting. Wasn't expecting Joe and Norris to pit because they weren't on softs. It was only Ocon left, I think. So Gasly is indeed out ahead of Vettel, but obviously Joe, Ocon and Norris all pitted anyway. So he came out 2 seconds behind Albon, so he wouldn't have come out ahead of that group because he still came out behind Albon. But comes out in 10th, having made his pit stop onto hards. He's not going to get to the end here. I think he's caught the train as well, so we'll let everyone get caught up. Safety car might come in this lap. It has come in this lap. It didn't say anything until then, but yes, he's come in a little early. Actually, he might have come in basically bang on time. He's got 5 drivers on 30% used mediums ahead of him. So there's going to be a period near the pit stops for them where he's going to be much faster. And then he's going to have to pit as well. And he's already really having to go at Albon before he's even got going. Come on, Pierre. Yeah, so he's going to be alongside Albon as we restart this race. He's going to back out of that, but the intent was clear. I need you to get at least one of these AlphaTauris basically immediately, please. I need you to reattach to Hamilton, essentially, and then wait for their tyres to go off. No DRS for 2 laps, of course. He's got one of them. It's taken him a little bit longer than I was hoping it would, but... Oof. Oof. That could have gone so much worse. That's actually before the main straight. I'm surprised he's not got Albon as well, actually. It's just because he positioned himself in the classic F1 manager spot. I'm not even going to deploy him or anything because he should take Albon in the next DRS zone without really any issue. Yep, there he goes. So I need him to catch Hamilton now. Perez is pitted. Interesting. That's quite early. So the medium runners are pitting out now, and Gasly obviously isn't keeping up. I mean, he's closed overall on the group, but I'm actually just going to burn his fuel all the way till he actually catches up here. As soon as he gets in that DRS, we might be all right. It's only the 2 hard runners now, so leave it. I mean, just on pure tyre levels, he should actually be catching up right now, but I think they're sort of essentially DRS slingshotting each other in such a way that is not helping Pierre. Might just give him the opportunity to harvest up a little bit here. Not too much, but I think that's the first hard runner in the pit. Pit window is 1 lap and he's still on 57% tyres. Attack the tyres a little bit on these few laps. See if he can get within a second. Oh, well, they've pitted already. Just do the fastest lap while you're at it. I mean, we'll go as late as possible here, as Leclerc pits just as he overtakes him, I think. I'm not sure what the gap to Verstappen actually is right now. Actually, that is the lap to pit anyway, I think. I was thinking he probably could go another one, but... So Verstappen pitting a few laps earlier actually really brought a gap on Leclerc. Interesting. And he's struggling to get the fuel back, I now notice, as well. Okay, so back out again. Leclerc's coming round there. Verstappen is miles up the road. So we effectively overcut Leclerc there. If we just deploy the remainder of this ERS, keep him outside the second, we might be all right. Just get to like 1.5 and then stop pushing both. This fuel, though, is going to be an issue. He's not going to get it. Do people need to pit again? Okay, there's 2 hard runners that might need to pit again. Show and Stroll might need to pit again. Sonoda probably going to have to pit again as well. As soon as I've taken them off any ERS and tyres, Leclerc's immediately, they've pitted actually straight away, back within a second. So pushing was entirely irrelevant. He's done the fastest lap. I'm going to try and conserve fuel and just let Leclerc through because I don't think it's going to make a difference. We're going to have to actively conserve this fuel now. Interesting. I mean, it's worth remembering for the future that apparently Saudi is a bit difficult to actually conserve fuel on. Interesting that even though he's conserving, he's still gaining time on sights. Leclerc will get him. Like, I have no illusions of that. And he's losing time all the time to Verstappen as I mean, if he stays ahead of Leclerc, okay, well, there he goes. But he's ahead again. He's ahead again and only 0.1 down. Oh, poor Doohan. He's still in 10th, but might have been 9th when he crashed. He might get a point, though, which is a miracle for him. But yeah, we don't need to conserve now. There's 12 laps to go and he's only 0.1 under now, so he should be okay. It's interesting he was as competitive as he was, even whilst conserving. Now he's behind Leclerc. I might just get him to harvest a smidge. Just make sure he never ends up outside a second, but he's obviously got the pace to stick with him. So Pierre harvested that entire lap and still overtook him at the end via DRS. Good work, Pierre. It's a good move from Pierre there, actually. And we've, harvested a lap worth of ERS. Verstappen's huge undercut has absolutely done wonders for him. It's weird because there's only about 7% worth of tyres as well. Well, it was not even that. It's only about 6% worth of tyres to Leclerc. They only pitted like a couple laps earlier, and just those 2 or 3 laps where Verstappen was on mediums before Leclerc, he pulled out like 4 or 5 seconds. It's crazy, really. But it's got Gasly fighting for a position that he wasn't in for before. I forgot to come back there, but there we go. Sainz is 10 seconds behind us. Perez is 4 seconds behind them. And it's very much gone in our favour. 2 laps later, he's still not got that 0.1 back. I suspect it's going to be a bit of a back and forth with Leclerc now. So this might be a bit of a fast forward and just sort of manage things. Actually, once again, harvest whilst you're behind. Okay, so there's a second place on here for Pierre. If we just time this right, just get his ERS up whilst he's behind and then, trigger an overtake towards the end. Make sure he's the one either ahead on the final lap and then he can just charge on it, or make sure he's the one just behind. And then we just, slip overtake on and get past him on the final section. I just don't want to lose him through the DRS zones. All good. Stay behind him for now. Stay behind him for now, Pierre. There's been a Sector 3 incident. Interesting. Literally cost... Oh, it's Hamilton. He's still 9th. I don't know how much of a spin that was. But he's back in the positive on fuel as well, briefly. I might get him to conserve a little bit, just to allow him to push either once he has overtaken or in order to overtake. 3 DRS zones, because we're okay on ERS now. We've got a lap minimum. There's your 0.1. Just keep him honest, Pierre. Had a little nibble. Didn't quite get him. I must say, having this on 2 times does feel a little bit Benny Hill at times. Tell you what, though, there's a safety car pit stop to Sainz, pretty much. We know that's about 16, 17 seconds now, so... Admittedly, there's only 5 laps left, so if there is a safety car, there's not really much time to do anything anyway, but his fuel's up to plus 0.2 now. Oh, a borderline. So we don't really need to salvage too much. We'll just let them race. And whatever the situation is on the final lap, we'll just try and charge with Pierre. Oh, Doohan's in 19th. I don't know what's happened there. On very old softs. Did he have to pit after his... That's probably what happened. Oh, that's a shame for him. So Gasly's warding off Leclerc for the time being. But obviously 3 DRS zones is keeping the fight between them. I think Leclerc overtook Gasly before the line. He did. So he just got him straight back again. We'll watch one of these. Possibly mostly for thumbnail purposes. But... Nice move. Another good, nice move there. Side by side. Good work from both of them. Love a no shenanigans overtake. Okay, so we'll join these two on their last lap and a half as Leclerc's back ahead again. But still 2 more laps. Gasly's behind, has 0.2 of a kilogram to spare. But most of all, he has ERS for effectively a lap and a half. Which now he's got DRS here. I might just try and get him to harvest on these 2 sections. Just to make sure he stays behind here. And now deploys here. Switch to the inside, Pierre, as you always done, or go around the outside instead. Okay, that's a new one. Just keep the fuel on push until I see it go to plus 0.1, and then I'll bring that off again. But Pierre can deploy on this entire lap, have no concerns, bring out that gap. We'll quickly rewatch this highlight, because it will be the final highlight, I hope. Around the outside this time, keeping Charles guessing. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. We'll try both. I mean, Crofty says muscle as if it was, demolition derby there, but he's pulled out 6/10 so far and still has effectively 4 laps worth of ERS because he's harvested a bit. Gasly is much worse on his tyres than Leclerc as well, I think. Because he did have a side 2 or 3% on Leclerc because he pitted a lap later, but it's now only 1%, so I'm not going to push those tyres either. 6/10. I know he's got another set of DRS here, but with the RS, that should be enough to stave Leclerc off, I hope. Push the fuel to the line as well, just to be safe. Done. Oh.
Thanks, guys.
Fastest lap as well on that last lap. Somehow Leclerc's wasn't even faster. I think either Pierre or Mick had fastest lap before that. I can't remember. Maybe Verstappen did a faster lap after his pit stop, because he certainly pulled out a massive gap on Leclerc and still managed to hold on to tyres as well. Magnussen beat Hamilton. I didn't see that one. They were in a train at the end of that. Oh, Hamilton's hards is gone at the end. That's what's happened there. Hamilton was on old hards. That was Perez, who got taken by both of the Mercs. That was a fight that I'd missed. And similarly, Sainz ended up a good solid 22 seconds behind, I think. So the winner was out of range, it seems, just thanks to Max's pace on the undercut, but still gets second back. That's a fist bump from Pierre. Yeah, Max on the win, Charles third, Pierre with the second place. That's it, get the Red Bull guy. Tell them to drivers. Yeah, just Max and Charles. Okay, so we don't lose a place in the Constructors, probably because of Mick, but... Okay, so the music obviously continues once again into this page, but Pierre goes from 6th to 2nd, Max from 2nd to 1st, actually. Sergio, the big loser overall, unfortunately, for him. Magnus is a huge winner. 17th and 9th to get 2 points for Haas. Vettel on the fringes of getting points. But yeah, Mick, effectively the big loser, just because he crashed. And Doohan lost out again because he crashed again. I don't know. I didn't see what happened with Doohan, but just wait for the crescendo there. Yeah, I didn't see what happened with Doohan, but whatever he did forced him to pit again, I think. So, alas, Pierre with the fastest lap at 1:31.195, significantly faster than everyone except for Esteban Ocon's, who I think actually did have the fastest lap before that. I suspect Charles Leclerc's 1:31.5 was off that last lap as well with the DRS off Pierre, but George Russell gets himself some points and moves up to 6th. Mick, obviously, with no points, moves down. As Valtteri Bottas gets himself 8 points as well. Both Mercs on the board now. So is it Ferrari that's gone ahead with 3rd and 4th there? I think it's Ferrari, isn't it? Yeah. Because Pierre with 44 points, fastest lap. I'm intrigued what's differentiating Gasly to Verstappen here. Because obviously it's 1 win each and 44 points. So it's 1 win, 1 second either way. But Pierre's got a fastest lap and Max has got a point for a pole position. After 2 races, there's only 5 drivers without a point. Jack Doohan, sadly. Zhou Guan Yu, Lando Norris and Yuki Tsunoda, along with Seb Vettel, only ones without points. Lewis Hamilton scores his first point for Alpine in 10th there. Logan Sargent still holding on to the point from Bahrain. Ahead of him, amusingly. K-Max 2 points takes him 12th. Sergio's first points as well takes him 10th. But we do lead Red Bull by a point because Mick has 1 more point than Sergio overall. And Alexander Albon with more points, 7th. So it is Ferrari with 54, 2 sets of 27 this season. We only picked up the 19 via Gasly, unfortunately, so we do slip to 2nd in the Constructors, but Red Bull 1 point behind. Merc, notably behind at this stage, but obviously we're only 2 races in. And remarkably, despite there only being 2 races, there's no Constructor without a point now, as Haas pick up their first points and Mercedes pick up their first points. They were the only 2 who didn't score in race 1. And Mercedes obviously going from last to 4th with 18 points. 1,000 points for Pierre. Mick, unfortunately, curtailed race, only 400 points. I thought he was going to get an experience point this week, but only 9 laps of a race will do that to you. You might still have one. He does, in fact. Mick's smoothness is 88. How on earth was he not managing to look after his tyres better than some of the others there? There must be some people with 90 plus smoothness in this. Obviously give him the point to cornering. Same with Behrman, who gets an overall. And one thing I will say about F1 Manager, one just sort of like small thing about F1 Manager here. You only get 2 scouts as standard, but there's no real necessity to ever have more than that. Screw it, I'll just re-scout Lance Stroll while I'm at it, because you never lose scouting knowledge. Like if you lost scouting knowledge, I think the way to fix that is to lose scouting knowledge. That's the way to do it. But you can see we've basically got all the knowledge of every single F1 driver on the grid, apart from Seb Vettel and Fernando, who's now sort of effectively retired. You know what? For one of the best race engineers on the grid, his salary's not awful. I'm obviously not going to actually bother replacing him because he's 86. There's no real point. So I'm going to give him the longest possible contract on the same wage with a lump sum bonus, and he's going to accept it. There we go. 5 more years. Because he's only 43 in age, so he's not like he's going to retire imminently either. One thing I don't know about F1 Manager is I don't know if other teams can offer your drivers contracts. Because obviously you can just go in at any point and go, hi, would you like to come join us? And they'll, negotiate and say yes or no, depending on that. But I've no idea if other teams can do that to you, or if it's sort of dependent on remaining contract and things like that. Because Pierre's obviously under contract for another 3 years now. I don't know why his morale is only okay. I would love me to have a breakdown of why that is, considering he's been 1st and 2nd. Just a casual reminder that we're actually paying Mick less than we are paying his engineer. And on that marginally awkward note, we'll leave things off for in-game Australia next time out. From here on in for the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be back to just 2 races a week. Just as I finish negotiating my own deadline season in real life. And then we might be looking at sort of 3 races a week a little bit more permanently. We'll see how things pan out. But this is the last three episode week for another couple of weeks, for the rest of the month probably. We'll see how things go. If I feel like I can find the time to continue 3 a week from here on in, bear in mind I am recording massively in advance at this point, effectively 2 weeks ahead, then I will do. So things might change between now and the point where I'm going to be recording more. So thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed this race, if you enjoyed this series so far, like, comment, and subscribe, most importantly, if you haven't done so already. If you're on Season 3 and haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you're doing, quite frankly, but please sort it out. But yeah, join me for in-game Australia, as I've said, I think already, recording this off the back of real-life Australia, so all the carnage that came with that. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, ta-ra.